This is me. Well, me as a kid. Just look at that wide-eyed, sassy little boy who happened to see all things good in the world and things that were either the color pink or covered in sparkles. Up until about the age of 10, I would spend countless hours playing with my American Girl doll collection, or my Barbie dolls, and constantly complaining that my walls were in a bright shade of hot pink. I mean, I was a total diva. I can so vividly remember a time when I was at my own birthday party and my mom had hired Bubbles the Clown to paint everyone's faces. I would not stop talking about how much I wanted a pink sparkly unicorn painted on my face. When my mom eventually took me to go get my face painted and I asked for the unicorn, she politely dismissed my comment and asked Bubbles to paint a pirate on my face. I was pretty upset about this in the moment, but I saved the tears for later. Once Bubbles had finished painting my face and she handed me the handheld mirror so I could get a glimpse of what I looked like, I was completely distraught. I saw the ugliest eye patch on my face that I didn't even ask for. I held it together long enough to take this picture and then instantly started sobbing. I was crying so hard with the paint running down my face that my mom took me into the bathroom, wiped the paint off my face, we had a conversation about it, and ended up settling that I would get a horse painted on my face, that I could pretend had a sparkly horn on it to make me feel a little better. At the time, I didn't think anything of the things that I was naturally drawn to, but it wasn't until later in my life that I noticed other people seemed to have a problem with it. Society deemed the things that I liked as not for me because I was a boy, and that wasn't how boys were supposed to act. I couldn't think of a single explanation for why I was drawn to the things that I was, other than the fact that I was just being my natural self. This confusion that I was feeling led me to believe that who I wanted to be friends with or what I wanted to play with was wrong, ultimately leading me to feel ashamed of my own identity. As I entered middle school, my desire to fit in only grew stronger, and I started to naturally conform to what all the other boys in my age group were doing around me. I wanted to be like all the other boys in my grade so badly because I was sick and tired of being seen as different all my life. I now notice that how I was made to feel was deeply rooted in a one-way expectation of masculinity that's inherently toxic if we push people to conform to it. Masculinity in our society specifically details roles, attributes, and behaviors that the greater worldwide society deems appropriate for boys and men. I really want you to focus onto this word appropriate. This very definition is what those around me clung to, seeing me as a young boy making decisions and labeling them as not appropriate behavior for a boy in society. Just think about this little boy brushing his Barbie's hair or picking out hot pink socks to match his hot pink I Heart One Direction shirt. He wasn't harming anyone, but others treated his behaviors as wrong, even though he was simply expressing himself. Although I was made to feel ashamed of who I was from a very young age, my parents are the very reason that I gained enough confidence to stand up before you today and share my personal story with you all. My parents constantly encouraged me to be myself, regardless of what anyone around me said, and did their very best to shield me from knowing that society didn't like my behaviors, which I'm forever grateful for. I had an incredible support system around me, but what happens when there isn't support in the mix to guide one through difficult masculine pressures can be incredibly damaging. Men in our world are constantly pressured to be a certain way in order to feel respected or as if they have a place in society. This pressure has caused an influx of mental health issues among the male community. Mental health issues such as anxiety, depression, and even body dysmorphia have been on the rise for men in recent years because they are trying to live up to the standards of being masculine in our society. According to Mental Health America, 6 million men in the US alone struggle with depression, as well as 3 million men struggle with anxiety or panic disorders. There's been an uprise in the pressure surrounding the performance of being masculine that has caused men to feel hopeless in themselves or not establish self-worth, which then leads to these various mental health issues. Our society then puts a stigma on these men, labeling them as weak or as if they aren't tough enough if they end up seeking help for their mental struggles. These stigmas force men to shove their emotions down, causing greater, more sudden emotions that will arise in the future, such as excessive lash-outs, due to the only outlet of any sort of emotion for some men being anger or frustration. The act of teaching men to avoid their mental struggles or bottle their emotions is correlated to an awful issue in our society: the male suicide rate. Even though men make up 50% of the population in the United States, men also account for 80% of suicides nationwide. This jarring statistic just goes to show how serious mental health issues among men has become. These men who feel so alone are fathers, brothers, friends, and neighbors, and deserve the help that they need. Not only does the entire male population deserve a change, but those who once knew those who lost their lives due to mental health issues deserve a valuable change that can save the lives of many, like the ones who once struggled. Now, throughout my research, I've found that there's no real finger pointing in this situation, but the media is a huge contributor to the severity of what I believe is a masculinity crisis. Diversity and male representation in the media has been an issue for a very long time, especially in media that is catered more towards men, such as advertisements for men's cologne or men's shaving products. I want you to look at the screen behind me and just think about what you see. Do you notice anything? Not a single one of these men above me doesn't have an 8-pack of abs or enormous biceps, while occasionally motioning to a half-naked woman. Just think about how unrealistic this is in representing the male population in its true diversity. In these advertisements, companies use a tactic called peripheral route persuasion, in which they try to appeal to the part of you that desires to be something like the people in these ads, and in the process, promote unrealistic masculine ideals that give the message to their customers that if they want to be a real man, their product is just the perfect thing for you to buy. These ads typically feature men who these companies deem to represent the perfectly attractive male in our society. Looking at it now, it may seem kind of ridiculous, right? But we are constantly exposed to this kind of media, and it is altering our subconscious view of masculinity. To me, this type of media simply exemplifies everything that our society believes a man should be, which only leads to thoughts about how you should change yourself. We deserve media that we can see ourselves in and that celebrates the male population for its unique differences. Because right now, it is forcing men into a box, making them believe they have to be something for society to accept them that they might not want to be. Believe it or not, this notion of masculinity that is constantly forced onto us sets expectations for every single man that we come in contact with daily. So we must alter our perception. Although advertisements have a huge effect on our subconscious view of masculinity, the main place where I have seen male stereotypes come to life is social media. One particular instance where social media has worked to place a negative connotation on the male population is the popular phrase, "kill all men." Dating back to as far as 2014, the "kill all men" hashtag spread like wildfire across all social media platforms. At its entry into social media, this hashtag flooded sites, as well as people's views on the male community. This hashtag was usually used to emphasize that all men behave toxically. And even if someone didn't mean it, was explicitly used to say that all men should die for being a part of the male community. This further put all men into a category that they are inherently bad and will forever do bad things to people just because they are men. This phrase was thrown around way too loosely and not talked about enough, which worsened the problem of the masculinity crisis because it enforced the idea that all men are the same, which is false. We simply need to do better in recognizing the toxicity in behaviors like these and doing our part in speaking out against them. Although media does have its downfalls, we can use it to educate one another or to spread a positive message. There are many great examples of media out there that do its part in educating us about toxic masculinity and its dangers, such as the Gillette advertisement that was released 5 years ago, illustrating toxic masculinity in its most encouraging form.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual
Toxic
harassment.
masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
This advertisement is an amazing example of media doing its job in representing what a man should be in our society, which is anything that they want to be. Gillette took the opportunity to show us how to diversify media to have a greater impact among the male community, because what we consume in the media daily matters. Gillette has even shown growth within their own company, as they once released ads like this one on the left that are incredibly damaging. It is media like this that helps us gain the understanding that masculinity in our society should not be defined by anything but a spectrum. Masculinity can look anywhere from slamming heavy weights on the floor, to having a 20-step skincare routine, to even feeling comfortable enough to wear makeup out in public because you simply feel confident in your own skin by doing so. If we continue to understand that masculinity is a free range of expression that each and every man before you has a choice to make, we can start to slow the effects of the masculinity crisis and flip our mindsets to view masculinity as this wide-range spectrum. We can learn the toxicity in our behaviors and in our surroundings and make the active choice to correct them, because that is the only way this problem can be tackled. Let's try to flip our mindsets for the little kids out there like this little John Luke, because just as the Gillette ad tells us, the boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow.